Clay, I really enjoyed our meeting yesterday. Can I brag on it to everybody?
Sure.
What I got out of it, and I always get this out of you and I working together when we're collaborating, is I get a feel a little bit of what it's like to be that genie. And that's why I was sharing with you is I don't know where we're going. I don't understand where we're at. And that's huge to try to get a feel for what they might be experiencing, you know.
Yeah. Well,
I think helped you. The
I've
reason I
got
want to share it is I also think it helped you. It wasn't like I'm tattling by any means. It was just an awesome experience and I appreciated it.
yeah. I mean, that's what I like about we 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 do good together.
I think so.
Yeah.
It takes us to places that we've not gone with anyone else.
So, but I've about got it finished. I've added some new documents that really seal it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have a document that says this land transferred to Robert B. Ames was previously deeded to Daniel.
Oh, wow, Clay. That
Yeah.
that might really be the
I
tip.
had it. I gave it to Robin and she didn't use it.
Well, she's trying really hard not to use anything she doesn't need to, and she may not have seen the need for that at that time.
Well, yeah. I mean, and we were all rattled.
Mhm.
And
Well, the prospective members' attitude didn't help a bit. Well, Libby has joined us, but she's muted, so she might still. There she is. Hi, Libby.
Hello.
Hi.
Give me some more coffee.
I know. I'm actually drinking my probably last peppermint mocha of the season. I gotta share this. I don't know if you guys can see it or if it's backwards. It is to mine, but I need the kind of coffee that's so strong when I take a sip, my ancestors wake up.
I like that.
Isn't that cute? That was a gift given to me by a friend. It was like, wow, when a friend understands you to that level. Well, it might just be the three of us. It's already 9 o'clock, which is fine. I didn't put out a big blast this time. I thought, you know, every time I do, I get the same people saying, please add me to the list. And they've already been so added to that list that they're there. So I thought if I took a month off or so and then re-advertised it, we might get some new interest, but maybe not. You know, I didn't really even have a topic. I've got several things going through my mind that I wouldn't mind talking about, but I thought I'd leave it up to you guys. Do you have something that you wanted to talk about in regards to research?
I'm new to this, so I'm a little on the clueless side.
Libby, I am just glad you spoke up, and that's fine. That's what this is all about. It looks like somebody else just. Um, we're just here to talk about lineage research, genealogy, which is different. Lineage research is that, you know, try to get 2 points connected together. Genealogy is a research of the family and the surrounding history. Clay, is that working for you? I see you better.
Well, I found a place to put my laptop where I could see the screen.
Okay.
So I hate to be invisible.
Yeah, I do too. I hate it when we're invisible. Um, yeah, I wanted to look at something quick. So, Libby, you're with the Carolina Gold.
Yes, ma'am. You're coming our way in February.
I
Uh,
am.
that Saturday. You have two classes, I think.
I do. And Clay's already taken that workshop. What she's talking about, Clay, is the verification marks
Right.
workshop. But I've kind of stepped it up a little bit. I took it to Spartanburg, and we ended up earlier, Clay, than what we did when we did the workshop in Aiken.
Yeah.
And so I asked those that were there, is like, give me some constructive feedback. What could we do this a little better? And Libby, you might be able to relate to this. One of the girls said, I'm just trying to understand how the application process even gets together. And
Exactly. Because you go and I mean, I'm I'm not saying negative about the website, but you go in there and then you think you have this, and then you don't want to submit or help anybody submit anything because you have those, whatever those star strikes are. So you really want to get as much as possible so that you're not going back and then having to submit again and submit. You just don't want anybody to have that problem, and they've not taken away that other part of it. So having members in my chapter that there's a few that have really struggled um, with having to use Bibles from churches and things that were destroyed when you're from a state where, certain things they moved, and then there was a fire. So, you're pulling it out there. These things exist. They have pensions, but then trying to go back and get the paperwork is sometimes very daunting for so many people.
It can be. And
Yes, ma'am.
there's a lot of hard work that goes into it.
Right.
And that's why I love people like you, Libby, that are coming in and going, okay, I don't come with any presumed background or uh, lineage society experience, or
Exactly.
let's just start learning, and that's
Yes, and I
needed,
would
Libby.
not want to be the person helping someone, with helping your registrar, and you think you have it, and then you really don't. And, even though we're all supposed to be doing these major checks and balances, it's still, we had a few members, it was very kind of close at the end. They did get through, but it was pretty painstaking for a few of them because of destroyed records.
And you're going to
So,
have that. I'm a Western migration person. My family, I've got patriots from Virginia, from Pennsylvania, and from South Carolina. But I grew up in Colorado, and my daddy was in Kansas and his mom in Oklahoma. So, I mean, just, we're just those Western migration people. And so, even those people, when you go back in time, end up with some of these struggles you're talking about. They're not unsurmountable, they're a
right.
little bit more challenging.
And then, it's really sad sometimes, I have several friends that we're really big junkers, and we go looking, and you're doing that and you see a wedding picture or you see a Bible, and you just don't even want to leave it at the place because you're thinking, "Oh my God, this is somebody's Bible, and this might be that's to me even more disheartening to see a Bible, to see a flag being sold at a thrift store. It does exist. I don't care what anybody says. And of course, I'm going to be the one that buys the flag. So it's not in the thrift store.
I used to go thrift store shopping to find family pictures and try to trace them back to who they belonged to. That was,
Mhm.
I did that for a couple of years. That was, instead of genealogy, my real drive. And, it's really sad. Some of the people that I would actually find that I could connect these pictures to didn't really care.
When I
I
see
know, I know.
What, Clay?
when I see a Bible in a
Hmm.
estate sale, I grab it.
Hi, Darlene.
Hi.
To
I'm
do.
And
sorry, I'm having
I
some
will
technical stuff.
submit
Sorry.
it to DAR.
She's got a good point, Libby.
Oh
Um,
yeah, well I will do that because like I said, I was just sitting there going, "Oh my goodness, it's very overwhelming." Or pictures, and you turn over the back of the pictures, and there's a lot written on the back of the picture, and you're thinking, like, who put this in the garbage box, or who, I don't know. I'm not a pack rat, but it's like I use my treasures.
and we like that, and we
Yeah.
appreciate you. I mean, for doing that. Um, so Darlene has joined us, and Darlene is right now actively helping me with a supplemental case for, and that's exactly what the Volunteer Genealogist Committee is all about, is we've got one lady with three supplemental AIRs. And we've, on this one in particular supplemental, she's got a man who's sharing his name with 15 other men in the same location. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but Darlene, have you started working on that spreadsheet at all, or that worksheet?
Hi, can you hear me? I'm using, okay, because normally I'm on my laptop, but for some reason it won't open on my laptop. So here I am on the phone. Okay, good.
But Darlene, do you have power? You
I
must.
do. I do. I don't know, understand why it's like, I don't know. Anyway, okay. Let me just close the laptop because then I'll get very, very distracted. Um, no, I have not started on the spreadsheet, but it's an interesting idea on how to keep it more separated, the folks separated, because basically in this family, there are two, well, through the lines, there are two people that have named, each have named their child the same name, John, and then they name, so there's like, and then they're all over the Midwest, same last name. I mean, first name.
I'm going to share that worksheet. So, because I gave Clay one to work on yesterday too. It's kind of interesting. Let's see.
That's another question I want to ask you. Somebody talked about, and I can't remember what I was at, and it was maybe something on the South Carolina, I don't know, some historical thing. And they talked about there was like a person like you're talking about, and they had a name, the exact birth date, the age in one town, and you go over maybe a state, but you're real close to the town lines and all this, and the same person has a the same name, the same age, and similar children in another county with maybe a different wife.
And you can say that. I don't know that that happened as often as we might think it did. I think a lot of times we're confusing a person, two people that have similar names or characteristics. And so we think it must be the same person when it's not.
I think it was
However,
on the census. It was on census. It wasn't on, it was on the, 1700 or 1826 census or something like that. They were discussing that at another meeting, and they really didn't come to a conclusion on it because the person had a census at one place and a census at the other.
that's when, okay, so can you guys see this Excel spreadsheet I've pulled up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is what I gave to Darlene because we are struggling with John McQueen's. They're all in very close proximity to one another. One time he's married to one woman, and then all of a sudden he's not. And so, did that first wife die, or are we combining two John McQueens? And there's things that you could look at. So, what we've got here is, Darlene was explaining to me that she was just kind of overwhelmed. What have you got, like, seriously, Darlene, like five John McQueens?
I've got 5 identified John McQueens in the same area. So I have eliminated the one that's in South Carolina. I've eliminated the one in Connecticut. Um, and but all the other ones are in Missouri, Indiana, pretty much in that area.
And it's really important to look at those things. I'm working on something else this morning, and I'm, you got to be careful when you go up and down, and that's what I'm doing. Hang on just a second, I gotta. Vicky just sent a message that said, she said, sounds like my Fleming family. So, I mean, I think we all have something that we can kind of relate to in regards to this. But where I'm at right now is I'm going down from the Patriot instead of up from the prospective member. And you got to kind of do that a little bit when you're getting close. And I'm looking at this Patriot going, oh my goodness, they got to code this guy because he's got kids born in different states just a year apart and they're not going in a line. But I've only started looking at it and these are verified applications. So I'm just like mentally screaming, like, how can this be? And so, again, that's just a big flag to me, Darlene. And I'm glad that you're saying, okay, well, I've got this guy in Connecticut and I've got this guy in Missouri. What are the possibilities that it's the same guy? Probably pretty slim. Now, it doesn't mean that can't happen. But anyway, so that's what the spreadsheet. What?
I had a similar situation in this past year. I was helping somebody else. He wanted the question of, wanted to answer the question of which John Doe was the right John Doe. And the two different John Does went through different migration paths. And it was really neat because then when you got into the census records where you had place of birth, you were able to eliminate the other one because of where the children were born at what time.
Yes, and see, Clay, that's amazing. So that's what we're looking at with this spreadsheet is this is a timeline. And if you've not used a basic timeline, you're missing out when you have kind of some confusion. Even if you're just working on your own family history, it just really is nice to put in the dates along here and then what happened, like the birth of a child, or, you see that they're in a census or a marriage of a child that's got them listed on the marriage application, whatever. You can see um, the place, the event, and the date. And at first, you could even put everybody under this John 1. Now, this is just personal use as far as you start breaking apart all the different Johns. So, like this John, and these would all be McQueen that Darlene and I are working on. But the descriptor there might be born 1826, Connecticut. So in our mind's eye, we've isolated out of this group of Johns. We've got this one over here that was born in Connecticut in 1826. And then here it might be son of David. Whatever it is that helps you. Now, as you're working this, you might find out that John, son of David, was born in Connecticut in 1826. It's a worksheet. That's fine for you to move things back and forth. So, like, let's say that you've got the 1850 census. I put in date. I started putting down just year. Depends upon how much detail you want. If you put just year, that's still enough to help you create a timeline. And let's say that he was 25 years old, and let's say that it was Edgefield, South Carolina, and that he got married. And then over here, you could put Evelyn Snow. Okay. So then as you're building this, you see that you go down here a little bit and there's 1860. By now he's 35. He's in Berry County, Missouri in the census. Okay. And over here, what you could do is say children named are Patty, Richard, Lynn, Charles. And it's okay that the cell grows like this. That's fine. It just gives you a place to dump this information to where then down here, let's say in 1890, he's not listed. So let's say he's deceased at this time. But you might want to say, okay, Charles married name's father. Okay, so then you realize, okay, so you look at that, you see this Charles and you see this Charles, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Now that I see this, it gives you something to start with, if nothing else. And you're like, Edgefield, South Carolina, Berry County, Missouri. I'm going to copy all this and move it over here because I think this is a different John. Just however it helps you to break things apart and look at.
Mhm. One of the other problems with this particular one I'm working on is the spelling. It's just atrocious what they've done with the name. And I'm
Yep.
thinking McQueen is a very easy name, but it's come out as John M. Queen, John,
Queen.
yeah, Queen. And then at one document, a corrected document, I think I mentioned about that one, was a marriage certificate. It was changed from John Dunn to John McQueen. So
So before he was married, he
I'm
was
not
done.
I don't know. I'm like, okay.
Well, and now that's all good stuff you can put on here because you want to
Yeah,
capture it.
yeah,
And then
that
you
will
can
help.
go, okay, this guy doesn't really hit any of these boxes that I'm looking for, and you can delete it. It's a worksheet. It's not anything that you're going to submit or that anybody else needs to see or to take, notice of. It's just something that's
Okay.
cool to help
Yeah, I like
mentally.
it.
Yeah.
Susan?
Does that, yeah, Clay. It's so funny. I know you can't look at us, but it looks like you're not talking to us, then I hear you.
Okay, I had another uh, consultation that I thought I would share. I did the had all the census records, and when I got done, I had 18 children.
Hmm.
Oh, that is not very likely.
It's easier for guys than girls.
Well, but they were all the same wife, and so the first thing I did was to look to see if there was a skip of more than 2 years
That's good.
between the birth of children. And I said, and I found it, and I said, there's another wife. Went looking, found it. They both had the same name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
You guys,
So you have to look at the details in those census records to be able to decipher one from the other. I also recently had one where the particular group of families have had many extramarital married relationships, and there's a two census records with the same man's name with a different wife and a different set of children. And I went with the one that had the same one or two children that were the same names of what I had previously confirmed.
you know, we that it is very easy to combine people. We have to be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
I just this morning came across an estate record that said so and so is deceased, and here are his known children. From his first wife, these children. From his second wife, these children. And these are his illegitimate children. It listed them. So, for us to make assumptions, I've got a brick wall line in my own personal research because there's no actual record of who the father is from this woman who had three sons. And of course, I'm from one of those boys. So everybody's saying, oh, it must have been just a fling that was going on for years with the next door neighbor. You can't assume that. I mean, that's just, and that's where DNA can really start helping. But when you get back further like that, we need male DNA to help us with that. What I'm saying is the genies are never going to say, oh, it was a fling. No, they need some sort of proof that this is a particular lineage, something
Yeah,
that ties it together.
I was just working in one like that, and one thing I have started doing is I will do a search, just a Google search for that family to see if there is a book that somebody has put together. And this particular one not only had a book, the book had all the references to the information in the book.
That's good.
And then there was another huge DNA project that the family had done and had shared that online.
And until that DNA is resolved, if you're working on an application or a supplemental application, walk away for a while. I mean, because you can get sucked into the family lores that's going the wrong direction unless you can find something that can prove it, like this estate record that I looked at today. I was just blown away. And there are bastardly cases. I mean, come on, our ancestors weren't stupid. They knew that it took a union of a male and a female to make a child. And so for a woman to just end up pregnant, they're like, okay, now there's no such thing as Social Security or social services, child support, that we are going to, do a bastardly case. And that was a court case, and you can find it in court records that the man had to take responsibility for the child of an unmarried union. And those, now that's a record. And, that's where we get into this difference between genealogy and lineage research. Within the DAR, we do lineage research. With genealogy, you've got a little bit different mindset. You're looking at a lot broader picture. And so the records that you're interested in are sometimes different. For instance, to look at Civil War pay statements. That's really fascinating, but I have found very little information to help me tie into a lineage link of a child or a parent from looking at those. They do help flesh out the individual that you're looking at. And if you have a challenge, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and look through those in case it tells you where they were, where they left service or where they went when they took leave, to kind of get an idea of where this person was at. But they don't help with the lineage links that we're always looking for.
Mm.
On that note, though, I have found the death, which gives the place of death, and sometimes it will name the wife.
It that not the muster rolls. A lot
Some
of
of them do, yeah.
well, I'm just saying you can, but that's not when you're doing genealogy, you record all of that because you want to build that person's life up as much as possible. You're trying to really get a deep understanding of them. And when you're doing your own genealogy, it's wonderful to put together a supplemental application. But I'm talking about lineage research versus genealogy. There is a little, for one thing, the citations are completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another trick that I am starting to do when you're having a difficult research, write down every place you look, because if you have to do an analysis, you have to
Yes.
give them that. And then it takes hours to go back and figure out where you did look, and maybe you don't get all the ones you really actually looked at.
So Clay, how do you write yours down? Because I have my software application that I use, but what do you use?
Well, this is the my most recent learning experience, so I haven't really done it yet, but so I can't really share what I'm doing because I'm not doing it yet. But I do know that the next time I work with a difficult person, I'm going to start writing them down.
It's important
If
to
I
do.
just put it in a notebook to start with.
Me asking you about how you use it, and saying I've got my software application. I watched a couple of YouTube videos this last week on Ancestry.com's Pro Tools. Have you looked at that at all, Clay?
No, I have not.
I was kind of, I don't, how do I say this? It's got a lot of nice things, but I get those with my software application pretty close. But they charge like $9 extra a month for those Pro Tools. They
Yeah.
get to be pretty pricey. Um, if you're using Ancestry.com only to keep track of the genealogy or the research that you do, you're limiting yourself, I believe. I kind of hate to show this because it's kind of junky, because meaning I should put together, I'm gonna share with you my research here. And when I'm saying it's kind of junky, this is not the way I meant to share it. Whoops, I'm trying to get it to go. But I'll show you the real thing. If I can get it to play right. Come on, you. Now, I've shared this before. So do you, of those that have seen it, you're like, my goodness, is she selling this? No, but I believe in it. It helps me a lot. Okay. This is called Legacy Family Tree. And it costs like $39.95. I've not gone out and looked at it recently, but it's not overly expensive. It's really not. This is the case that I'm working on right now. It's an AIR for a new application. And this is where I said I was working from the Patriot here, and I was in the DAR GRS looking to see which, his children that are verified and putting them in. So the one that we want is this John Lindsay, is what this family tree I'm working on says that it builds to. Now I'm a long ways from verifying it, and it's not smart to go from the Patriot down, but sometimes I just get excited and I want to see if there's a possibility, and that's what I'm doing. But let's say that we have found another son of this John Lindsay and Elizabeth West. So I've just clicked on one of these cells down here and say add a new son. And this comes up to where I can write in his name. He was born in, let's say, 1810. And I do it this way, meaning I do city, county, and then state. So if there's nothing there, I just put commas. That's Susan's own standardization. Nobody's ever said that. It just helps me see that I don't have the city and the state there. But let's say that he died in 1875, and let's just use that for, let's do it this way. Okay, so there we've got the bones, but then we might have found them in a census record. So you just click event and you can pick here. I'll go into another screen. You can pick here, what is it that is the event? You could, of course, make your own too, but like their census, or let's say that we found them in a land record or a marriage license, just all kinds of options here. Like I said, you can make up your own. There's a way to do it, or we found his will. Let's go ahead and use will. And then we could put the date, the court, the location that the court was in, and then we might want to write down all kinds of notes about this. So then up here, we click on this, and this is where we build our citation. So we're going to add a new source. And since it was for a will, we're going to scroll down here. There's all these options. Oh, let's see, probate records. Are the records bound in a book or loose? We're going to say that they're bound volumes. Select the level of jurisdiction. We're going to say it's at the county level. Where did we find it? Select the medium. It was in online images. And then here what we're listing is the actual source grouping, not the actual document itself. So we might want to say Edgefield County, South Carolina, probate records, 1755 to 1920. That's our title. That's what we're going to go in there and look at it for. And then the state is South Carolina, and the county is Edgefield. I'm not going to go through too much of this. If you guys ever wanted a complete lesson on how to use this, I could, but we don't want to take all of our time looking at it. What's really cool though is, so we built the title to the grouping, the record set, and now we can go in here and we can say our item of interest was the will of Robert Lindsay, page 356 in volume 22 or something like that. And then the date that we found it. Now here, Clay, my love, is where you can put in image 25 of 645. So that we can find it. Okay. Now, this is not going to write a citation that would be acceptable for the DAR. You're still going to have to go through and do the DAR way of doing citations, but this is the citation that you just built, which will be able to help you find it. So, okay, so here's this. We're going to save this, make a copy of it so that we can use that same source citation with whatever we do. And let's say, okay, that source citation was good for, it gave us the date of death. So we go up here to where our sources are and we copy into that to say that that's where we got that information. And it just keeps going on and on. You can do that with census records, keep adding, the children of this Robert Lindsay, his wife, you know, same sort of thing. If we set her as a new person, we get the same screen to start building her information. It just goes on and on and on. What I really like about it is, here's where I was at this morning and why I was playing with it. Whoops. This particular tree, it's got little symbols here. Everything's got its own shorthand. And so this just means that there's more information. When it's bolded, there's a wife, but not children. So I was looking at this one. The prospective member is this Trisonda. So with that, I can look at her pedigree chart. And that's everything I've got in this application for this prospective member. Now, it doesn't mean that every one of those individuals I've got all the information for, but it means that I've got a place that I could start working. And so we're really struggling along this Austin, all this area. It's like, I do this a lot. When I get to a point where on a new application, especially, I'm really struggling, I just go all the way back down the tree and rise up another branch, And so this morning, that's what I'm doing is I'm going up this Surratt line. So I can click on James Surratt. It's a little bit of lag. I think the Zoom is taking some of my power here, which is fine. Come on, you. Okay, so I double clicked on it, and now I can go back to, well, come on. I can go back to the view that we were looking at. I can also do a descendancy. So we're on that James Surratt, and it will tell me what this system has for this person ready for us to look at. Or chronology, and this is kind of that timeline that we just got through talking about a little bit ago. Do you see it? As far as these dates, and this is what happened. And so you can see here, there's a lot of Tennessee, and then all of a sudden there's this little bit of Mississippi is where his parents died. Well, to me, that's a little bit of a red flag. It might work, but I want to go look at it. And this one might be, I do not, of course, do as good a work on building out everything in this when I'm working on somebody else's application as I do my own. I live in this for my own. Like, let's see. We'll go to one of my, so this is my family tree, one of my lines. And you can see how the timeline looks a little bit different. There's a lot of notes here. But all of this is populated through the information that I entered for my grandmother here. See? And then I can look at all of the sources that I've used. So Clay, where I put that information you were talking about, make a list of what you've looked at because you might need it for an AIR. I always put it under research. Now, of course, this is my grandmother, so I wasn't even thinking of DAR application when I started doing this. But let me see. May have done. On some of these, I start. Oh, that might be up here. Let's see. Yeah. So this is where I put it. Do you see here in research? I looked through the DAR analytical index cards, found a little bit about this. All these little notes, where I've looked, what I've found, like here, hit. I actually found something that was exciting enough to. Okay, so did I just like lose you guys?
No, Sharon, I was going to ask it. So within this program that you're using, this is more like a note section And it also has a link. I've not worked in this at all. So when you put stuff in, you can link it and note it at the same, at a different place. Is that what you're trying to tell
It
us?
is all interlinked within itself. It
Interlinked
doesn't,
within itself. Okay.
um, it doesn't take you to any of these internet websites, if that's what you're asking. If I,
No,
okay,
no. You have to go look back up that and put that information in to get where you want to be. But this is just your trailing pathway.
good way to put it, Libby. Yes.
Okay. And that's the other question I was going to ask you a little bit about was, is this the one you felt like worked the best for you? Because, I haven't tried any of these. And then the only other question I have that I saw, and I don't know anything about it, is called Heritage Quest Online for Genealogy. Have any of y'all looked at that? Because they're
Sure.
offering a free course with Coastal, but you have to sign up to be a member and then go to the course, and you have to have a library card and all that. I know nothing. I read a little bit about it, but I know nothing about it.
Well, Libby, you haven't taken any of the GEP courses.
Okay. No, ma'am, I have not. But
And
like
that's
I,
okay. It's not that I just would like to see you take some of the GEP
well,
courses.
I will. Yeah, I got to get started. I'm just, I'm a
Well,
newbie.
and I think that, so GEP 1 is kind of a course for registrars to learn what the job's all about a little bit.
Okay.
See.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll plan on taking that, but I just didn't know if
Okay,
it was
so
worthwhile.
Heritage Quest, I've not heard a lot from them for a while. It's kind of funny when you go back and you look at, I'm showing you some of my old research. I was looking at some of my old research. I believe it was in this family file that I've shared with you right here. And I wrote really bad citations for some of the census records. I was embarrassed to look at it myself. But what I found out by looking at it is I had been looking at census records on Heritage Quest. Now, Heritage Quest was something at one time that had all kinds of, at that time, it was a fairly heavy repository for records because it had the census records before they were so widely popular. When 20 years ago, we were out there trying to figure out where we could find census records. And that was one place that had them. I have not heard anything about Heritage Quest in quite a while. They've kind of disappeared. So I don't know that much about their course. And I think that there are courses like the GEPs, that's why I'm encouraging that. But there are other places that might be keeping up more with what's going on when Heritage Quest might be kind of losing some footing in the
It
business.
sounds like they are because it also made a comment in reading their blip description on it's on an Ollie thing. It says you have to have your library card, but once you get this, you can then get access. So I went and looked a little bit. I think there's some free access, but I think if you want a little more access, I think you're going to pay. Same thing. I
That's
think
kind
it'll,
of where I stopped with them because they were actually starting to put books and things online, and I was real excited. And then it was even through a library account, you ended up having to pay if you want them.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying. So I thought before I even signed up, it's not till March, but I thought I'd go speak to the librarian a little bit
Oh,
about it because it says you have to have a library card, you have to have this, you have to have that. So it's somehow connected with the library. So you're right. Libraries are supposed to be free.
yeah, I do a little bit of research into it myself. And Libby, you might find out a lot that I don't know about it because I've just not
Yeah.
been following
Well,
them.
I'm going to go visit her. There, one of them's a younger person that's managing the closer library. The other one's a little bit older, but she's real innovative. So I think I'm going
Oh,
to visit her because she's real, you know what I'm saying? She's kind
yeah.
of frontal and wants to do stuff with digital QRs and kind of thinks a little bit more old box and new box. So I'm going to go chat with her and see what she says about this because it's all library connected.
If you get excited, please share.
Oh, I will. I'm going to see
Yeah.
her hopefully this week or next week and do this because I didn't want to. It's a free course, but you have to do it through Ollie and sign up for the two counties we're in. So you pay $40 to join Ollie and then it's free. So see, that's what's real weird. So I'm going to see if she might offer the course. You never know. There might be somebody in the group there that's doing it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then I'll find out and I'll be glad to share. So
I know Barbara Jers is our state lineage research chair, and she's real excited about legacy family tree webinars. That's where she, as far as now, she's an advanced genealogist,
okay.
but in order for her to stay honed and to constantly be re-educating herself on methodologies and record sets, she's got a subscription to Legacy Family Tree webinars. And I know myself, I like listening to YouTube when I'm driving down the road. And I don't know when Barbara gets a chance to, but she'll go to a lot of these online webinars. And that might be something else that I don't know, Libby, that you might want to look into.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Um,
Like I said, it's kind of new to me, and I'm just trying to figure out which pathway to do. And I understand about the family because I'm working on something with the Civil War right now, and the pension and what's in the system. The last name is Gist, and it's spelled some places Gess, some places like Guess, and some places Gist, and some places Guist, and they're all in the same county. And some of them are all buried in the same. I went to the cemetery, and they're all in the same cemetery next to each other.
with different spellings.
Yes, they're
Oh,
related
wow.
because they're in a family cemetery.
Oh, my.
Libby,
Yes, ma'am.
my husband had great uncle twins. They were twins, and their last names are spelled different.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, we cannot put any weight on the spelling. With last name like Faulkner, I spell it a lot. And so I bet you do for Clay for client. I bet you get asked how to spell that too, don't you?
I spell it very slowly.
Well, I can only imagine, Libby, your last name.
I found out when I was going through some of my father is only first generation United States, and I found my grandfather's um birth certificate or something where he had changed his name and the spelling.
Oh,
So
wow.
the spelling on my grandfather is different, and I also found where my father was baptized one name and changed it.
You can't, I mean, that's why we've got to look at more data on our people that we're researching than just the way that they spell their name. I've got um, a very special friend. Uh, Actually, I became friends with her husband first. And he found out that I was interested in genealogy. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I like to do that too." And their last name is Harrington. He goes, "We're from the family that only uses one R." And I'm like, "Okay." I just shut up because I'm like, you got to know, back in the day, they would use one or two, whatever fit for them. So,
Hmm. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. And I did go to the cemetery and I'm like, well, isn't this kind of interesting? And they're also related to Richburgs from South Carolina. And that, trust me, is spelled that's about 5 different ways too. You
good
can,
point.
however they said it. Yes, ma'am.
We cannot, we cannot focus on the spelling. I mean, we can, but we're going to miss out on records,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
That's what I figured out on that too. So I've been going through that. And that's been kind of a little crazy. So, but
I could not find my great grandfather Davis in the census records. I was just going crazy. Davis. I mean, come on. That can't be that hard. And so there's not only the way that they would spell it when they would handwrite it, but then transcriptionally too. He was when they put him in the index, it was Doris.
yeah.
Yeah, I've
And it's
seen
how
that.
phonetically you say it. You know how
Well, it's
you,
not phonetics, Libby. It was the way that the handwriting was looked at. Doris and
the cursive. Okay.
yep. So I mean, I couldn't understand why there was no census record for him. And I did that going down line by line in the page, and I'm like, well, it's right there. How come it wouldn't come up in the search feature? And that's what I found out because it was indexed as Doris.
Okay. Lord. Okay. So this is going to be fun, but
Got
that's
the
okay.
D and the S, and that's about it.
A lot
Okay,
of
I wanted
times
to.
when I do research, I only research for one name, either the first name or the surname, whichever is the most uncommon.
Well, and first name searches actually do provide hits, Clay. You
Mhm.
know, when you've got a variety of last name spellings, sometimes the first names are more standardized, like John. Of course, you have John or Jon, so usually Jon is a Jonathan, but that's usually not all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did want to go through this a little bit. Now, Clay, I know you've taken GEP 1, 2, and 3, correct?
Yes.
And I know Darlene's done 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I don't know about Vicky. She's muted. I don't know if she can talk to us or not. Let's see.
I'm not sure if she's taken it. I know I haven't, but I haven't heard her discuss that with me for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Is she Carolina Gold?
yes, ma'am, she is. And she's
Great.
taking the class with us. I think we're both doing the 9 a.m. one.
Oh,
Somebody else I know I know one or two people in my group. I think they're doing the 1 o'clock one, I think.
now,
I'm
That's
Darlene,
I'm
are
go-
you going to what?
I'm sorry.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi, y'all. Were y'all talking about the genealogy courses?
Starting to.
Well, yes, I'm going to sign up to take those. If that's what you were asking if I was going to take.
Yeah.
Yes, I would
And then
love
Libby
to.
was saying that you're going to be at the workshop in February.
Yes.
Now, Darlene, you're going to be at the one in Somerville next Saturday, right?
No,
No.
no, I'm not signed up.
Why?
Distance.
I thought I had you on one of the sign-up sheets, but you would know better than I would. So, um, okay, what I wanted to show right now is do you guys see this screen up? I've got the genealogy guidelines.
yes.
Okay, so you know this is the Bible. This is what it's all about. Supposedly, every question we have on how to fill out an application is included within one of these 3 volumes of the genealogy guidelines. Part 1 is a guide for the chapter registrars, and it just tells them what they need to do. Part 2 is it talks
Excuse me.
about how you actually do the nuts and bolts of completing the application. And then part 3 focuses on the patriot, being able to prove service and what all is needed for the application for that part. So I'm going to go ahead and open these up. The reason why GEP falls into here too is that GEP 1, 2, and 3 tie directly to Genealogy Guidelines, Volume 1, 2, and 3. So in GEP 1, which you have to take, those 3 you have to take one after the other, you get to learn about this stuff. We're not going to go through deep details, but just chapter duties in general. Let's see, section 2 is how to become a member. Whoop, it's hyperlinked to that page. It's kind of cool. And then submitting corrections to the Office of the Registrar General. It kind of gets into like it's titled, what does putting together an application do for you? Why do we do an application? Really? You got to start with something, and that's where they started is, kind of like, what is the application? What is its purpose? How does it work? And so that's what GEP 1 focuses on. GEP 2 is the nuts and bolts. Talks about general instructions, just like what the fees are and policies and stuff, and then finding an ancestor, proving the lineage, potential obstacles that you might find when you're working on proving the lineage, and then filling out the application. This probably is the part that is referred to more than any other part of the whole genealogy guidelines. How to do the lineage itself, how to document the lineage, and the proof citations. So if you ever have a question, now I've shared a cheat sheet a lot. I use it. on how to write citations, a lot of times on that cheat sheet, it will guide you to pages in here that have got examples on how to write citations the way that the DAR wants it. And then the page 4 into the Revolutionary War ancestors residency and service. And then this is an important part too, and that's how to actually arrange an application in the way that they want it submitted. Then it gets into what AIR letters are, and it's got a really nice acronym and useful terms appendix page. So this is probably the heavy. This is the one that is most referred to this volume of the genealogy guidelines. And then the part 3, again, talks about the actual patriot. What is an example of acceptable service? Meaning, they don't have to have just been a warrior. There's a lot of other things that individuals during that time could have done to be considered a patriot that we can, we can tie into and memorialize them, if you will. And then what's really nice too is it's got a whole list of places that you could look for service records right here within Genealogical Guidelines 3. Now, Clay, it's been a while since you've taken these courses, but do you remember which one of those 3 was your favorite?
No, it's been too long, probably.
What about you, Darlene?
I like 3. That was going through an actual case with kind of what I'm dealing with now. Somebody with a similar name,
Yeah.
and this was a patriot, and they were in New England, but they were in slightly different, if I'm remembering correctly, slightly different parts of Cape Cod. And so, yeah, it was interesting.
That was definitely my favorite GEP course, and for a different reason. I mean, I really liked that study by all means, but coming from the West and growing up in Colorado, our history was based on cowboys, Indians, and Spaniards. Didn't really learn that much about the Revolutionary War. And one of the things that GEP, we heard, of course, we knew about it, but not to the details that we get to experience it here in the South or in the East. But what I really liked about it is in GEP 3, it got into the city of New York and how it was actually, the Loyalists pretty much run the city. I did
That's
not know
something.
that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I will always remember that, that's where I learned. I just really brought a lot to life for me as far as understanding that.
Well, and then I also like the different, what do you call it? Different sources that I was not even thinking about. Somebody could be like, a notary republic and end up being a patriot. And I'm like, wow, just there's so many other places to look.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I know one of the patriots I'm working on myself was a widowed woman who gave beef to the military.
Ah,
Yeah. I'm working on her. She's kind of hard.
I know the walls there can get frustrating.
Well, her daughter is, the child of the patriot. And so then obviously, women back then didn't really have names.
No, I know. They got married and they disappeared.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
why she's kind of a challenge, but
Yeah.
I do endorse the GEP courses only because DAR is very well known and they've got a great reputation for doing good lineage research. We are a community service organization. I love that about us. That's what we do. That's what the DAR is. But if you do a Google search on best lineage research society in the United States, DAR is at the top of the list.
Wow. It's impressive. I also
is.
like just Genie 4 because I felt like that was what's new and coming. It's all the DNA research and the different lines and the different types. And yeah, I found that really interesting.
My mother was adopted from an orphanage.
Oh, wow.
So we're trying to figure out this, and she lives with me. And
Uh-huh.
she is not a member of the DAR right now. She's a prospective member, an active prospective member.
Okay.
And so we are going through that journey of the DNA. And when I first took the course, they did not accept autosomal DNA. It was only the Y
Uh-huh.
DNA that they accepted. So it wasn't going to help me at all with my mom,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But now that they take autosomal, we're trying to get all the ducks in a row. We've got everything but that DNA report done. So
Wow.
it's the challenges that we've got right now is we have found a sister and she is deceased. And so we have found her daughter.
Uh-huh.
Um, she's on Ancestry. We're just waiting for her to load things to this family tree DNA page. And she's like, why? Why do I want to do this? We're like, because we want you to. So, like I said, that's
Mm.
our challenge right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then GEP5, that's while we're talking about, let's just see if I can't pull these up. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again because I want you guys to see how they've changed things around. I like the new website, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to it. So, let's see, here under genealogy, do you see how it pops now? It's just very different than it used to be. And they've got I think the GEP courses are under either resources or research. This is research, so that's not it. It's under resources. There we go. Libby, here's someplace else you might want to check out, hon. They've got some webinars right here from the inside the DAR web pages.
Okay.
And you might want to just, there's a lot of good information here.
Wow.
Yeah,
They're
I did,
not a,
yeah, I did see the courses are like $75 for 1, 2, and 3. I didn't get down to 4 or 5. I only saw 1, 2, and 3 earlier, so it will be a work in progress, but I am going to start.
well, Libby, here what I'm showing you right now are just links to free resources.
Free, yeah.
These are all free courses or free,
Yeah.
you know, um, they call it genealogy 101.
Mhm.
So it's just a way to get
Right.
some good
More
resources.
tools, yeah, more tools for our toolbox. I need all I can get.
It's a good place to learn.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Mm.
okay, so here in did I get lost again? Resources, genealogy education program.
Yeah, that's where it is. I had looked at it before.
The registrar training course is free, but you have to be the chapter registrar in order to take it. Then there's the GEP5, which is e-apps. I'm not really a fan of electronic applications. I'm just saying.
What's the
Uh,
difference between them and just doing a regular PDF? They're both electronic.
a lot. You actually there's more collaboration and review involved in an e-app. So they do not have to go, when you use an e-app, you don't have to go through the review process that is coming out now, that just came out on the regular applications because it's integrated within the e-apps process. So it's actually kind of like filling out a form online. Um, this is silly, but it's not. One of the things I don't like about it, it's the ugliest form I've ever seen. It looks like it's dot matrix and um, but the process itself has got some merit. I just hope that they start cleaning it up a little bit. It,
So is it an app to use so that it's easier to fill out and you don't have to, is it a little easier software driven? Is that what you thought, Susan? Okay.
I've never used it. I took the course. I have
Okay.
seen some applications that are generated using e-apps. I know a lot of people are excited about it. I'm not. Um, For one thing, okay, Libby, here's one big difference with eApp is that it's a tool to collaborate with the prospective member.
Okay. So, and if your
Kinda cool.
if your prospective member is 75 years old and's been retired since they're 55, it's probably going to be a problem.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And
But for
maybe
that
I'm,
young person, for that young whatever, that's going to work just perfectly.
there you go. You also can pay electronically. You know,
Oh,
it's,
okay.
you
Mm-hmm.
see, and you're absolutely right. For the juniors that are coming in, I think it's got promise. I think it's been out for a while,
Yeah,
several
because they
years.
do everything on their phone. They're just so phone driven. And I'm I I'm not the
No.
phone to me is not exactly safe yet. I'm not happy with the phone yet.
So GEP7, this mid-level review training program, is kind of like part B of eApps. Remember, I told you that
Okay.
it's integrated. So if you want to be a reviewer with an eApp, then that teaches you how to do that.
Okay.
The big exciting news is the supplemental applications. I like it because it's kind of, it's another $75 one. I was wondering what the price was. Um, I think they did a really good job with this one because it's kind of a review of everything. I don't think
Okay.
it's into e-apps that much, but into um, the GEP 1, 2, and 3 or the genealogy guidelines. It's kind of a review, consolidating it all together. It also takes us, it focuses more on papers that members want to do for their own supplementals instead of a brand new application. But
Okay.
in doing that, you still have to go through the same process.
Process. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So just to give a little bit of
Probably going to be somewhat the way of the future, probably, but
you talking about e-apps?
some form of it, or QRs, or whatever the new AI intelligent is going to be. There'll be something out there. I mean, it's
Right. I believe you're right. And I think that it's a good thing that the DAR is forward thinking on this.
yeah,
And so you could call me old fashioned too. I'm just not that excited about it.
yeah.
I guess I should be, but I mean, I come from the world of IT, so the technology doesn't bother me. But Clay, like you were talking, what's the difference between doing this and the way we do it? Clay and I do a lot of work. We're both in the Trenton chapter, and we do a lot of work electronically, and we share a lot of information via emails, and you know, I like that. I have no problem with that. This is taking it to the next level. The e-apps is.
Yes, and our younger folks are very time whatever driven because they have different things in their life. So, you know, they have a work family,
They still have to go through the same
sometimes
process as far as, lineage links and, proving all of the facts. So, um,
I
but
guess if you would make it easier, they would,
yeah,
it will come.
yeah. So are there any other questions or points or things you guys want to talk about? I mean, I've been kind of rambling.
Mhm. No, I just want to know about that health, whatever, and I'll get back with you after I talk to that librarian or head of the library, and I'll be there on the 8th for sure. I'll see you then.
I have a
But
question about your traveling workshops.
okay.
What do we need to do up here in the north corner to like, is this something I should go back to my chapter?
Who's your district director? Is it Cazette?
Yes. And she previously did a lot of genealogy herself. So
Mhm.
would she be somebody to approach and say, hey, how about considering this for the district?
That's
Or
what I would like. So on the 8th of February, Bambi Bullard has invited me over to her district.
okay.
And it's kind of funny because she built enough interest. One of the chapters is like, wow, it's just too far for us to go, even though we're in District 6. It's too far for us to go up to Polly's Island. Would you come to our chapter? And I'm like, typically chapters don't have 10 people who
Mm,
are interested in genealogy.
yeah.
Love it if they did, but they don't. And I started looking at the map and I'm like, you're really close to Somerville, even though they're in a different district.
Okay.
And so then we got that chapter regent and the Somerville, who is Susanna Smith Elliott chapter involved. And we started inviting all these rural chapters. So that wasn't really the district director. So for you, Darlene, if I will help. I need a venue.
Okay.
And then I can send out emails to the chapter registrars, regents around your area or
Mm-hmm.
in your district. Now, Cosette is the previous volunteer genealogist committee
Mm.
chair. So you would think that she would have,
Yeah, and she may be thinking of something already, but I haven't seen anything. So maybe I'll just, shoot her an email and see if that's something that, she's thinking of working on or looking for a spot to, like you said, a venue to do it.
I would like that very much. There's a lot to share right now. There's a lot of changes going on. And, it's what I do is to try to help guide us through these changes. And so I just went up to Spartanburg last week to
Oh,
do this
okay.
workshop. And so, like I said, I'll be in Somerville this coming weekend.
Okay.
So I want to tour the state wherever I can find a venue.
Okay.
I've already given
Um,
it to Aiken. So
okay. So this would be Oconee, Pickens, Anderson. I'm trying to think where in Greenville. I think those are where most of the chapters in our area
are you
from.
northwest or northeast?
I'm Northwest. I'm like 5 miles from North Carolina.
Well, you could
And
be northeast to be 5 miles from North Carolina. Okay, I understand though. Because there's a couple of good sized chapters up there.
there's Greenville has a huge one, and ours has 90 members. So, of Fort Prince George, and then there's some other ones, of course, around. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I also want to get into Columbia. I think that's another place. They've got like 5 chapters there.
Yeah. And see, that's only a couple hours for me to get there. So okay, but let me shoot this out to Cassette and see what she says.
I would like that a lot.
Okay.
All right. So one of the mistakes I made last week or last month is not having some feedback from you guys on what you would like to talk about during our next committee meeting.
Ah,
So what would you guys like to talk about next meeting? We've talked about acceptable documentation. We've talked about brick walls. We have reviewed the review process. And those videos are now all up on YouTube. If you guys ever want to review them, we've got a YouTube channel for the South Carolina Volunteer Genealogist Committee meetings that we've recorded.
I think one of the things that I'm found interesting with this particular one I'm working on is how did it get all the way to NSDAR with what I would call not not a tight family tree.
I'm sorry, Vicky was text or sent me a message. Can you repeat that question?
Oh, I'm just curious how it seems like the one that I'm working on was sent to NSDAR with a lot of holes in it. And how did that get through when there are some other ones, like I know in the chapter I'm in, it has to be pretty tight and together. You have to, before it goes anywhere. So how do we reconcile that issue? Or can we, to do things in a more uniform way, perhaps statewide, and just maybe some more ideas of where to look for in terms of to track down women? Those kinds of suggestions. Because what I did with what I'm doing with this is also trying to go, I'm thinking if I can go through the wives, I can find some other information that's worked for one person, but I'm just knowing what I know, but I'm sure there's a lot more out there.
There is, and that could be a whole different, women are interesting, but they're not dead until they're died. The thing is, it's not just the end of the road because you run into a woman, you know, you just
Yeah.
need to think. Again, we were talking earlier about being fixated on the way that a surname is spelled. And when you're dealing with women, especially, you can't overdo that because
Mm-hmm.
you've got to look at different connections.
Yeah.
They still are very much a part of their male counterpart's life. Now, that could be their father, their brothers, their husbands, their sons. Looking through their land records, their wills, a lot of times will give you clues as far as the women and how they percolate through things.
See, that's already a great suggestion. I'm just thinking of some of my own brick walls with my own, family. The idea of tracking down some of the brothers' wills to see if there's any reference to them.
The
Absolutely.
most, go ahead, Clay, what?
I have a cousin that I worked with, and there were two children with the same name 2 years apart. And so we got an air letter, and I'm going, oh, I can't solve this. And I went to all the siblings, and one sibling died in the war, and he was not married. And so there was a probate record, named the father, all the sisters with their new married name, and was able to get that application through. You never know what you're going to find.
Wow.
And some of those men who died without issue, meaning, what do you mean, Vicky, Huguenots research? Is that an idea that you'd like to talk about?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We have a prospective member, and I just don't have a clue where to start. And that's where she has directed me. So,
Well, you start with her.
well, yeah, yes, and her documents, and I do have those as well. So, but our, that's one direction she has said, "Oh, you might check this way," and I know nothing about that.
Well, I'm concerned when you say Huguenots research. We are daughters of the American Revolution, and Huguenots kind of predate us. And
Okay.
so that's where I see that. And I know that there is a lot of research done in that area. I'm not real familiar with it because it's not.
I think I saw something recently in the DAR. I can't tell you where I saw it, but there was a page that had suggested places to look for information, and I think there was one on the Huguenots.
I,
Um,
I think I saw that too when I was going through the new website. Yes.
well, there's that 26-page document of links that the DAR National has put together for us, and I'm sure they probably have a Huguenot section in there. Which, same sort of thing as the Mayflower Society. I know that they have probably some information there too. I probably should look more into that, but I just haven't because I love the Huguenots, but they kind of are ahead of us, in history.
They they also settled over in Walhalla, which they call Valhalla. So there's I don't know if there's an active church there now, but there's pretty good historical population there.
Thank
So
you.
if you're looking in South Carolina, check out, yeah, Valhalla.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But Clay, going back to what you were saying as far as um, a man dying without issue, a lot of times you're absolutely right. It's not like everyone that does this did that, but a lot of times you will see in their will that they do list their siblings and the women by their married name. So
Hmm.
And
not enough.
nieces and nephews and aunts and
Yes.
uncles and grandmothers.
Wow.
Depending upon the, I believe the size of the estate and some, you know, not every female married, not every male married, and sometimes they accumulated a great amount of wealth. And it wasn't that they died young, they just never got around to it. And so they had to. Now, I'm not going to say that did not happen in my family. You never know where you might run into it. You know, the other side of it is I did Tasha Clay, Tasha Garman in our chapter. Now, her application was really interesting because she did have a generationally great grandfather who died owning a lot of slaves and a lot of property in 1863. And because of the time frame, his estate was not finalized until 1883. And
I've
so
seen some of those, yeah.
during
Wow.
during that 20 years, his family grew, you can imagine. You know, I mean, in 20 years' time. And so even his grandchildren had married and were listed by their married names. The sad thing about it is that even though they were all listed, there was no money to get them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the other thing is the application that we were working on yesterday. You know, the estate is not settled until the youngest child was of age, which was 10, 15 years later.
After the
So, yeah. So the probate record has a date much later than the will.
Ah,
yeah, a lot of times it can be 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And so people's lives change. And so that's where you pick up some of your women, darling.
okay.
Libby,
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to share earlier, and I forgot until Clay just brought this up. Clay and I had a wonderful experience yesterday, and I'm bringing you into this, Libby, because you want to learn the basics. And what we did is Clay is working on an AIR. Some people call it an error letter. I call it an AIR because if we are DAR, it should be an AIR. But anyway, that's me. So what an AIR is, it's like, okay, we need some more information. We're not saying that we do not accept this application, but we need more in order to understand it. So Clay was working on an AIR, and because our weather got nasty here yesterday, I think the whole state did, but we were going to meet in person and we decided to meet on Zoom instead. And she had written up an explanation as an answer to this letter, and we looked at it together in this meeting room. And I kept asking her, it's like, okay, I'm not following what you're saying here. What was so cool about it is Clay and I have done this several times as far as collaborating together by reviewing one another's work and then realizing we have just put ourselves in the position of being the genie. So while I was reviewing this AIR and I couldn't follow what she was saying, it became obvious that she was having to try to explain it to me while we're talking, and we're like, that can't work. So the experience was that she's like, what do you need, Susan, in order to understand this? Which was perfect because if she hadn't had somebody to bounce it off of, how would she have known? We get so fixated when we do all this research and we see all these documents and all of the links work together that sometimes we don't remember that the person that's looking at it has never seen any of it. Libby, this is why this is important to you. This is the first basic place and really great place to learn the process, and that is to review the work of other people, to put yourself out there and say, you know, now that the DAR is saying we have to have a reviewer, I would like that job. After the workshop, you'll really be able to understand how we're going to go about that too. But don't be afraid to review. I mean, if you've ever done any editing or secretarial work or project management or anything like that, sitting down and looking at a stack of papers and whether it makes sense or not doesn't, you don't have to be a genealogist. You don't have to. Now, then you'll learn And then you could say, oh, well, what I want is a marriage record. Where would I find that? And then you could help by giving them ideas. But
Yeah.
when we do the applications, we get so fixated that this level of collaboration that the DAR is now expecting us or requesting us to do is a really good thing. Clay and I've been doing it for years, and we've both grown as far as our skills.
Absolutely. I think the solving the brick walls or where do I look next, the collaboration between one person and another person, because everybody has a different idea. And what you gave me yesterday was, I worked on it, still working on it because I'm a perfectionist. And it's looking so much better than what I started with. So I like bouncing ideas, and everybody looks at what you're doing differently, and they have different ideas.
So that's why I'm calling you out, Libby, as you're like, I don't know. It's like, this is a perfect place for you to be. Yeah.
And if anybody wants some assistance, I'm willing to help anybody.
It's fun.
Yeah, that's the only occupation I have now.
Other than driving your cats crazy.
I'm that 75-year-old retired woman with nothing to do.
Well,
I have lots to do. I volunteer too much sometimes, but that's okay. But yes, sometimes when we look at something, we cannot see the forest for the one tree
Mhm.
or vice versa. We
Yeah.
can't see the tree for the forest.
I think part of what
Mhm.
I think we just start bringing it into our cell structure, what we've seen and what we've been researching. And so we're looking at it and we see it still. When we put it on an application, we put together the supporting documents and then we send it off and we forget to send those cells with it.
Yeah, this
So
has been fun. I'm learning a lot. So
And the other thing I have found very helpful is when you hit that brick wall, take a break. When you go back to it, it will look different.
and depending upon your personal desires and all that, I mean, if you need to get away from your desk and just go, a lot of times for me, when you're talking about taking a break, Clay, I'll go work on another family or I'll climb down the branch and up another. I'll stop fixating on that generations that I'm working on. It's actually better if I just walk away from the desk or go work on a different family tree, a different person, completely different.
And
Yeah.
and then sometimes at that point, I say, I'm frustrated, I'm lost, and I'll pass it on to Susan or Robin or somebody else that I know is researching and say, look at this, because they'll look at it, they'll look at different things.
All right, you guys, I'm gonna have another meeting on, where's my phone? I don't even know. It's the 21st, I think. Hang on. We'll have another Zoom call because I'm gonna be in Somerville next weekend. I had just got through saying we were gonna meet the third Saturday and the third Tuesday, and then I had to change it. So the third Tuesday is the 21st, and that's the afternoon call. So I've been trying to do this to give us either additional time together or those people that can't make it on a weekday afternoon. And that's why I did it so early, in case we've got moms out there, let the kids watch the cartoons Saturday morning and then they can go off and do whatever they want.
Mhm.
So, and I'll think about some of these ideas that you guys are talking about as far as maybe we'll talk a little bit more about how to work with women's issues.
Yeah.
thank you for all your
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for being here. It'd be very lonely on a Saturday morning without you, I'll tell you.
on
And
a cold Saturday morning.
what's that?
On a cold, ugly Saturday morning.
I keep looking. I think we're thawing. We really had a lot. We got snow and ice yesterday. I loved it. I grew up in Colorado, so you gotta know.
Oh,
But I have never heard an ice storm. I was like in awe. It was crazy. I didn't know you could hear ice fall. It was amazing. So that was fun. And it doesn't stay as long as it does in Colorado.
Thank goodness.
All right, you guys. We will
Thank
see you soon.
All right,
Thank
take care.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.